Hello and welcome to Hollywood Blockbusters. I am your host, Joe Hollywood. And once again, I am joined by Imaginos Pete
Hey, hey.
and Andrew Walker.
Hello.
All right. So we are going to do kind of a quick recap of the Oscars that took place this past weekend. And we're going to segue into a discussion about the importance of seeing movies in the theater. And anyone who watched the Oscars telecast, you might know what I'm referring to, and we're going to get to that in a moment. But so I'm going to ask you two gentlemen, did you watch the Oscars this past weekend, Nick?
Yes, but not live. I enjoy recording it so that I can skip through the commercials and whatever I find tedious.
Don't you, well, I guess if you watch those clips early enough, but don't you want to be part of the zeitgeist and part of the conversation about Will Smith, what he did, and, you know, that sort of thing? La La Land. What did you see what happened last night?
I used to. Fortunately, I saw the slap live. I saw the misread for Moonlight. I seen all those live, and I'm okay with. I usually am not on any major things where I can see something trending, so I don't worry about spoilers anymore. When it comes to the Oscars, I kind of have a feeling, and here's another thing. I love our chat, so I can see as it's scrolling through. I'm like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of fun too. Just kind of live
Yeah.
chatting during the broadcast.
Right.
If I really wanted no spoilers, I would have just watched it live. I've watched it live before. I have no problem doing that. But this is one of those Oscars where I had other stuff to do, and so I was going to DVR it and then watch it, see if I could see what you guys say, and like, ooh, I should highlight that. There we go. I can't wait to see that.
No, I think back to the year of the La La Land fiasco. I actually had an Oscar party, and so we're all sitting there with ballots in hand, and as they award Best Picture, and watching people's faces change on the stage as they start whispering, and you watch that unfold, and I said to everyone at the watching party, I'm like, something's wrong, something's going on, and we're all staring at the screen intently until they came out and made the announcement that the wrong movie was read. Man, I will not give up the experience of watching that live or watch it unfold live on television at that moment. Yeah. Andrew, did you watch the ceremony?
I watched, most of it. I missed the first, I think, 10 minutes. I didn't see the opening presentation or
You missed the monologue?
I missed the opening monologue. But I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I love Conan. I always have loved him, and I thought he did a good job. And I at least about half of my predictions were right about who I thought was going to win. But yeah, it was. I liked it.
I never did get around to filling out a ballot. So
I did when we had Robert here last time and we filled out.
yeah.
And my God, I it's just like my damn March Madness. I know I mentioned that in the chat. At the last second, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pick a 16 seed. I should have gone with the originals. I should have gone with the original. I would have had 80% of my Oscar nominations. I crashed.
Yeah.
Robert got 17 out of 23.
That's
Correct.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's like insider trading. It feels like insider trading.
Well, get this. On my Facebook memories of past Oscars are popping up on my Facebook feed. And my friend Tim, a few years ago, I don't know if it was the La La Land year or not, he had something like 21 out of 23. I don't know how he did it. I'm scratching my head over that one. I don't think I've ever got.
I guarantee you there were
16 or
bets on
something.
FanDuels for people having parlays.
Oh yeah, well I did make a bet on Best Picture and lost $10, but because we'll get into Best Picture in a second.
Is that Tim Williams?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know Tim.
Yeah.
So I will say this, since you missed the first 10 minutes, I didn't watch any of the red carpet stuff. I'm almost embarrassed to admit this. I was watching NASCAR. They had their first road race of the season, and I had some money on that. So I was watching that, and it was coming to an end just as the Oscars were getting ready to start, and I couldn't watch the race anymore, so I switched over to the Oscars and caught the start of it. Started out really, really strong. I actually got a little emotional because they wanted to pay tribute to the fires and what Los Angelinos went through during those fires. So they did a really cool montage at the beginning of the broadcast of movies that prominently featured L.A. Fast and Furious, La La Land, you name it. And they were just really cool shots. And then it kind of shows Dorothy clicking her heels together and saying, "There's no place like home. There's no place like home," which again, it kind of segued from L.A. to Wicked. And so now all of a sudden, Ariana Grande comes out. She sings "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." It was amazing. It was really incredible. Then Cynthia Erivo comes out, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Erivo, I don't know. She came out. She does a song from Wicked. Then Ariana does a song from Wicked. And now they're doing like a duet, and it was powerful. Like they were hitting the notes. It was incredible. And so the telecast just got off to a great start. And then Conan came out. And I love Conan too. I've actually sat in the audience for his show like 5 times. And I really like Conan and his humor. But, his gimmick, his shtick is like this awkward nervousness, self-deprecating sort of a guy, kind of like a geeky everyman. And I didn't think it worked for the Oscars. And so he came out. His timing seemed a little bit off. Audiences would laugh over his jokes and stuff. Some jokes fell flat. Some of them hit home. He singled out the one actress from Amelia Perez, and that was kind of uncomfortable that he had singled her out in the monologue. And I was like, oh, man. And so I felt the monologue.
Well, that's what the Jimmy Kimmel joke, to set up the Jimmy Kimmel joke, yeah.
What's that?
He was setting up the Jimmy Kimmel joke
Explain.
because he was saying, and he was speaking to her.
Oh, where he said, if
if
you're
you don't-
going to use the name,
Yeah.
my name is Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah,
yeah.
you're absolutely right. So, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that part.
And she seemed to take it in good humor or whatever, but
Yeah.
I was kind of squirming a little bit. But then I thought everything took a nosedive when he said, look, we're going to try and keep on time. We're not going to waste your time. Then he goes into a big number about not wasting your time. And I thought it was awful. I thought it was terrible. At the sandworm.
Well, that's one of the things where, for a comedian, he actually seemed genuinely nervous.
Yeah. Oh, he did.
I know
He did.
nervousness is his shtick, but I think he was actually nervous because you're absolutely, the timing was off, and I think there's one too many jokes. If you're going to do the song about time, then cut the Adam Sandler one.
Yeah, I thought the Adam Sandler bit landed good. Like I thought that was a good bit.
But you can't have both.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. You're kind of grimacing over there. You didn't like the Adam Sandler bit?
Oh, I don't like Adam Sandler to begin with.
Oh.
And
okay.
and it's like
That was also that one
Yeah.
ran about 20 seconds too long. Like the joke that he's
Yeah,
not
it was too
dressed
long.
appropriately.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what we do.
Well, here's something I learned today that I thought was interesting. So, what's Nikki Glazer, kind of that roast comedian?
Yeah.
I saw a clip where she was kind of roasting people in an audience, and she spots Timothy Chalamet, and she goes, "Your last name sounds like something Adam Sandler would say, Chalamet, Chalamet." So I thought that was kind of neat, having known that or learned that as Adam was getting ready to leave and he saw Timothy Chalamet sitting in the front row, he walked up to him and said, "Chalamet." So he was doing a callback to that Nikki Glazer bit, which I thought was kind of clever. But yeah, I thought the monologue was sort of hit and miss. It seemed like it took forever to get to the first award.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's because you had a pretty long. This particular Oscar felt like a concert because you
Yeah.
already you celebrate all the songs that are nominated. They had the Bond tribute, which again, thank you. I knew Margot Robbie was dancing. I saw it again. I was like, that's fantastic. And they had the songs for it, paying tribute.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a more of a concert feel to this.
Yeah. I kind of miss the tradition of having the performer perform whatever songs were nominated throughout the ceremony, and they've kind of gotten away from that, haven't they? Like someone told me that the reason they've gotten away from having the performer perform the song at the ceremony is because the award is more about the songwriting aspects of it, not necessarily the performance. So they didn't want to put the spotlight on the performer, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because
to me.
it's a tandem thing. You can write the greatest lyrics in the world, but if a donkey sings it, it's
Yeah.
going to sound like a donkey singing it.
Yeah.
It's a partnership to that thing. Yeah, no, I when I saw Adele not singing Skyfall, I'm like, ooh,
Yeah,
that's a tough act to perform
Yeah.
wonderfully,
Yeah,
but it's not Adele.
yeah. And so that just kind of felt like filler You know what's weird? 30 minutes into the broadcast, I'm thinking, man, this is going to go past midnight. And it actually ended like 15 minutes before 11, which it might be a record. I thought I might have heard that it was a record for
Well,
brevity this year.
Wow.
Something they're like, okay, live action documentary. Like there are some categories they went back to back, fast, go, go, because you
Yeah.
got Adrian Brody having his little.
Let's discuss Mr. Brody, shall we? Okay, he won, 20 years ago for The Pianist. He got some criticism back then when he landed an unwelcomed big wet kiss on Halle Berry, who just happened to be presenting him the Oscar, and a lot of people didn't take too kindly to that. So now here, 20 years later, he wins his second Oscar. He goes up there, has sort of a rambling speech. The music starts to play, and he demands that they stop the music. And I saw someone post a clip today from Anchorman, the clip of what's his name? Ron Burgundy, where he's playing his Emmy clip, and he's like, "Stop the music!" And I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like they predicted this. And the arrogant thing about Brody doing that, he's like, first he goes, "I've done this before. I know what I'm doing." I'm like, "Okay." And so the band politely stops, and then he didn't really say anything meaningful after that. He continued to ramble after that.
Well, then because he was thanking his team, which should have been one of the first things he did, but he thanked all the people in his. And I almost thought if this is where Conan could have been Conan, him and Nick Offerman, because Nick Offerman had the control of the mic. He could just come over and was like, then if you know, then you should have stopped, Adrian. And if
I thought it was pretentious and arrogant, and I don't know if that's the general consensus or not, but he should have left when the music started playing.
And I think he's a fantastic artist and actor, a fantastic performer.
Yeah.
I just that felt weird.
Yeah. Now, anytime I see something like that happen, going back to the slap or whatever, I think alcohol probably played a role because it's fairly late in the night.
Is
and,
it?
Yeah. Because the best actor came way late,
Oh, they're probably getting loaded in between.
Exactly.
Yeah,
visiting the
that's a good
bar
point.
during the commercial break, and that really happens during the Golden Globes. People get smashed at the Golden
because
Globes.
they're getting fed. It's actually like a
Right.
dinner table. The Oscars, you're absolutely right. Now when I think about it, from when it starts at 4:00 in the afternoon for them.
Yeah, that's
to-
6 over. That's no, not
Yeah,
that's,
yeah,
no,
4
it's not
o'clock.
6 hours.
their time.
Because they're off by 3 hours. So for us, it started at what 7,
Yeah.
and almost went to 11. So that's almost 4 hours. So yeah, they're sitting there for
They're-
4
and they-
hours. They got a
commercial
bag of snacks because they're not really eating a meal there, and so they're visiting the bar on an empty stomach. So
Quick side thing. I know we talk about Chalamet. Anytime I saw a Kardashian or a Jenner there, they never look like they're happy to be there. I'm like, you
No.
do so much other stuff. This is one of those events, and they always they had this half smile because Chalamet got a lot of early camera action. When Sandler and you had Conan talking about him and Robert Downey, everyone was singing his praise, which is fine. And she's in the camera shot. It's
yeah.
like, wow, you don't look like you're happy to be there.
Yeah.
Fine.
Now, there was a period of time a while back where I was going to try and attempt to be somewhere along the red carpet to watch this year's Oscars. And then the wildfires happened, and I'm like, I'm going to push that back a little bit. But I was kind of laughing as I'm watching the ceremony. I didn't know who half those people were. And there's a moment it wasn't I Love Lucy, but the following series, which is like the Lucy Show. And Lucy's playing an usher at a movie theater during some sort of red carpet ceremony. And they got real life stars to make cameos on the show. And so she's trying to get them to sign her autograph book. And then like this couple comes by and she's looking at him and she goes, "Are you anybody?" And they ignore her and walk past. That's what I would have been like at this Oscar ceremony. I would have been like, "Who are you? Are you anybody? What are you doing here?" Like, I didn't know a lot of those people that were on the red carpet this year.
I would join you because, of course, I didn't see the red carpet, but that's probably where I'd been. I would have been like, "Hey, Morgan Freeman."
Yeah,
And then,
right.
and then
There's
a bunch
couple, I would have been excited about
like, do you know,
Jeff Goldblum.
like, do you know anybody not from the 1900s? No, I do not.
Exactly. So I would have been lost. So, all right, let's kind of recap some of the Oscar winners. Let's start off with Best Picture. So we're back up to 10 nominees this year, and the front runner, it was like a horse race. Like the front runner kept jockeying for position throughout, the nomination process up until the broadcast. And the Brutalist was a front runner for a while, and then like Amelia Perez was up there, and then the
Lenora.
comet surfaced, and that dropped back. And excuse me. So the front runner was all over the place leading up to the awards, and so I think it was still anyone's game during the broadcast until Honora started locking down some awards. And I thought it was interesting that this year's broadcast, a lot of different movies came away with awards. It wasn't like, Titanic winning 11 or 12 awards. So the Brutalist won some, and
You got divvied up.
Yeah, it was kind of spread out. But then Honora kind of went on this run, and I'm like, okay, I think I see where we're going here. And so Honora wins Best Picture. Now, of all the movies that were nominated, I've seen 1.5. I saw Wicked, which I thought was okay, and I couldn't get through Honora. I stopped it halfway through. I didn't care for it. I didn't like it. Nothing against Mikey Madsen, who won Best Actress, but I didn't like the movie. I thought it was shallow. I thought it was hyper. I don't know. I didn't think it was deserving of Best Picture, and I know other people who said the same thing. Now, I hadn't seen The Brutalist, but everyone I know that had seen The Brutalist called it a masterpiece, so I just kind of checked that off, that was going to be the Best Picture winner. But then as the broadcast went on, it wasn't winning anything, and up to a certain point, it was snubbed. It was shut out.
Right.
And then it won for score, which was weird.
And cinematography.
Yep. Those were the only two that it won. So now all of a sudden I see The Brutalist just dropping and Honora rising.
Yeah,
And Honora
cinematography, it was going to win. I feel bad for Nosferatu, despite my criticisms of it. That's one category where I thought it excelled in.
Beautiful.
But when the Academy says horror and drama head-to-head, bye.
Yeah. So, Nick, Honora, did it deserve Best Picture?
I don't mind it getting a nomination. I honestly thought it would go to The Brutalist. And then, being the smartest guy in the room, I thought, no, I'm going to pick Conclave. And that's...
you went with the underdog.
Well, no, because that's exactly what I do. I take what should be a sure thing. I take what all the smart people who know what they're talking about. I say, what do you know? I'm going to pick my own. And I went down like the Hindenburg. That's what I deserve.
Andrew, did Honora deserve Best Picture?
I had picked... A couple months ago, I had thought Honora would for sure win Best Picture. Then I saw The Brutalist in theater.
Yeah, you and Robin saw that.
Yep. And I thought... And it did well in the other award shows. And so I thought it was going to win. But Honora was a very close second.
Yeah.
Did it deserve to win? I really liked the movie. I really, really liked it.
But
I think I still think The Brutalist should have won.
There you go.
Yeah.
I
wonder if this is going to be one of those Best Picture races where years from now people are going to look back and go, did the correct movie win?
It might be.
Yeah.
I also saw Dune, which was great. Substance, which was my favorite movie. A Complete Unknown, which was really good.
Yeah.
So I saw roughly like half of them.
Yeah.
But The Brutalist just had a little bit more.
Yeah.
That I think
the only thing
pushed it over the edge.
Going against it was its running time. I think people resented its running time.
Yes.
You can't help but wonder if the Academy voters were like dozing off.
No. They don't get to do that. They voted. Ben-Hur's been on there. Titanic's been on there. Lord of the Rings has been on there.
Yeah.
We've had Scorsese movies on there. They don't get to complain about runtime.
Yeah. But I just wonder because a lot of Academy voters don't necessarily see it in the theater. They're given screeners. So imagine you're sitting at home on your comfy couch and you're watching this 3.5-hour movie.
Well,
is everybody making it through?
You get to break it up over 2 nights.
That's true too.
There is a 15-minute intermission.
Yeah.
They're allowed because fairly because they have to digest it. And because it's their vote that counts. If it's me and I fall asleep, I'm like, well, that's a negative.
Right, exactly.
You put me to sleep.
Yeah.
Well, you should have eaten that large pizza by yourself. Oh, well, yeah, that could have done it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was kind of rebelling.
I'll tell you what, they
against
might
this one.
look back, but if Madsen has a great career, they'll look back. That might be one of those. Oh, then that's why Honora won. They had great performances. You could say maybe the story isn't as original as you think,
Yeah.
but the performance is what elevated it.
Well, let's get to that. Best Actress, Mikey Madison from Nora. She was in one of my favorite movies, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She was kind of introduced to the world.
Yeah,
in
she
that
had one of
movie.
the most brutal
Death scenes.
Yeah.
Ever.
She got the worst of it. No.
And
It-
so,
yeah.
the director Sean Baker, when Quentin Tarantino presented him the Best Director award, he said, "Thank you for casting Mikey in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because she would not have been a Nora if it wasn't for that." And I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I would say that my favorite thing about Honora, at least the hour or so that I watched, was Mikey Madison. I thought she was very authentic, very real.
Yes.
She almost gave it a documentary feel. Like that's
Yes.
kind of what it felt.
And that's the reason why I really love the movie so much was her performance. And everyone else in the movie did good too, but she was so authentic, and she's only 25 years old.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So imagine what she's gonna do the next 10 years.
And
you know,
imagine. And I'm making this up, and I hope I don't sound sexist saying this, but so let me go back to Wicked. I saw Wicked in the theater, and I remember thinking Cynthia Erivo's got this locked up. She's going to get Best Actress. But then Demi Moore started getting a lot of buzz for The Substance.
yeah,
Now you start thinking, because sometimes the Oscars can be a little political. Demi Moore has had an amazing career. And a lot of times what the Academy does is kind of reward someone for their body of work with an Oscar for something near the end of their career. That happened with Jack Palance in City Slickers. It's happened before where it's like, okay, here's your Oscar. Thanks for everything you had done. So in my mind, Demi Moore became the front runner because not only was it a solid performance, but she paid her dues. And up until the moment the envelope was opened, I think everybody thought Demi Moore had it locked up.
I picked her to win.
Yeah.
Because she had won the Golden Globe, the SAG Award, maybe a couple other ones for Best Actress. So I thought this would push her over the edge.
And so I guess what surprised me about the 25-year-old winning is you would think some of the Academy voters would say, well, she's going to have more opportunities to get nominated. Demi Moore's kind of at the end of her career. Let's give it to her. That's why I think the result was so shocking.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, but in a way, I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of glad they didn't do that because you never know in the industry. God forbid, you die young, knock on wood, or something happens and you just leave the industry and you get your one shot to do it. I feel like that's not on Demi Moore for not winning. That's on the Academy for thinking, oh, you took her for granted for this career.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of you who were voting for all these years have to own that. Because whenever you go to whatever dinner party, you talk to your friends or family, you're on your deathbed, they say, why didn't you give Demi Moore an Oscar?
Yeah, and she's had some
Or
amazing
or name other
performances.
actors who have not been nominated but never got there.
Yeah.
And should have.
And I'm telling you right now, had she won the Academy Award, nobody would have second-guessed it. Everyone would have said, bravo, she deserved it.
Yep.
So it's interesting that the voters went the direction they did.
Yes. And Joe, and both of you, I think, brought up an interesting point. Joe, you also mentioned about not recognizing some people. I think over the last 2 to 3 years, we're seeing that next generation that's going to emerge for the remaining of the 2020s
I
and the
was
30s.
just going to say that.
I see. Great minds think. You see Austin Butler. You see Mikey Madsen. You see Chalamet.
Yep,
you see,
exactly.
I could see I see Grande getting an Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
More in the time as they start to, and it's coming. I see this transition now. I'm in my 40s.
generation.
Yeah, and I see. Okay, you are the people that are going to be what Brad Pitt and Clooney were to me,
Right.
and Matt Damon and these guys. As they came up in the 90s and were winning for Good Will Hunting and whatnot and moving forward.
Yep.
A lot of people say, "Oh, there's no more movie stars," and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah,
there's movie stars.
I don't understand.
Young movie stars.
I don't understand that
Yeah,
argument at all.
yeah, I don't either.
It's just
There's
they're
always someone who's
they're
gonna
not
come
paying
up.
attention.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
he was like, there'll never be another Sinatra in the Rat Pack. Who are these guys? Who is this Tom Hanks?
Yeah. Who's this up and coming whippersnapper, Tom Hanks?
Denzel Washington?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. Give
Yeah,
me a
there's
Sidney
always going to be
Poitier.
movies. If I have anything to do with it, there's going to be movie stars. Let's move on to Best Actor. You look at this list: Adrian Brody, Timothy Chalamet, Coleman Domingo, Ray Fiennes, Sebastian Stan. Um, was there any doubt in anyone's mind that Adrian Brody was going to
No.
get it? I mean,
No, that was
this was sort of a lock. I don't think there was any horse race. There was no controversy. I think everybody got this one right.
I feel a little bad for Chalamet because I'm sure his team was going Bob Dylan biopic. If you want to get an Oscar
And
nomination,
those always do well. I mean, you look at Rami Malek for
Yeah.
playing Freddie
That's
Mercury, and
And
those
yet-
tend to do well.
Walk the line.
and when they timed it, they looked and they saw the Brutalist and went, "Damn it!"
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah.
because you're not going to do another Bob Dylan. And if you do another biopic right away, then people are like, "Oh, look at you chasing the gold."
Now that's one joke I might have laughed a little too hard at when Conan, when he addressed Timothy Chalamet in the crowd, he goes, so Timothy really kind of honed his singing skills and got pretty good, and he got so good that he almost lost the role of Bob Dylan. And I thought that was funny because he was up there going, Bob Dylan doesn't sing all that well.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I haven't seen the movie. I know this might be sacrilegious. I'm not a Bob Dylan guy. I'm not a Bob Dylan
No,
fan.
it's
I'm not. It's not that I don't like him, but I just have never listened to his music.
Yeah.
And so I went into it. I took my dad to it because my dad likes him.
Yeah.
But this is maybe like a opposite moment where I know parents have said, "Oh, but on Christmas morning, it was worth it just to see the look on my kid's face. It was worth it to see."
The look on your dad's face watching.
As we're walking
Yeah.
out, I said, "What'd you think?" He goes, "Man, I really liked it. It was better than I thought."
That's awesome.
And then a single tear ran down my cheek. No.
But
But no, the movie
and cats in the cradle in
Yeah.
the silver spoon.
the movie itself is really good
Yeah.
and well written, well directed, well acted.
Yeah.
James Mangold, great director.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I know you said you're not a fan, but I think overall you might like it just
Yeah.
for it as itself. You know?
Well, this kind of goes back to Rocket Man,
Oh,
I never
yeah.
saw Rocket Man only because I'm not an Elton John fan. So it would be hard for me to sit through a bunch of songs I don't really like to watch the story about this performer's life. And that's just me. And I feel like I'm going to get angry emails from people, but
Oh, we
if I
have.
don't like the performer, I'm not going to watch the biography about his life or her life.
The
So.
good thing about angry emails, you just have to give the wrong email address.
Best supporting actor. Boy, it was so surreal to see Kieran Culkin up there winning and holding an Academy Award.
That's a true category. I don't know how you picked that. That was a fantastic lineup. You can't feel angry if you lost.
Yeah, that was a strong competition, and it's just so weird to
Literally, Jeremy Strong.
think. Yeah. But I mean, think about the '80s and Macaulay Culkin, and he was such a huge star. And imagine Kieran being the little brother living in that shadow for a good chunk of his life.
Fuller.
And now here he is on stage holding an Academy Award. I fully expected him to go, "Suck it, Macaulay." Like it was pretty awesome to see that
was.
he came out from under the shadow of his
And-
more
But he's
famous
honed
brother.
his craft. You watch him in Succession. You watch him in
Scott
theater.
Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim. That man, he's paid his dues to the craft.
I know
like that.
you hadn't seen A Real Pain. Have you
No.
seen it?
Yes.
Wasn't he amazing in it?
Yeah, and I credit to
Jesse Eisenberg.
Jesse Eisenberg
Yeah.
for writing that script. He
Yes.
gave that role. I know when you write it and you put yourself in there, it's natural that the other role that's not meant for you does well. It's like in Jaws when my man wrote himself out of the movie halfway through because he was like the scummy reporter. And he's like, the hardest thing I had to do was ever write myself out. But Jesse Eisenberg gave him a lot of meat on that bone, and he took
Yeah,
it
yeah.
all off.
Joe, I highly recommend that movie.
Oh, I know. I
It
watched.
is so
See, here's
so
the
good.
deal. And here, this is kind of a problem I have with movies in general. Like, I sat down one day looking for something to watch streaming, and I watched the trailer for A Real Pain, and I'm like, do I want to do this to myself? Do I want to sit on this sofa tonight and watch a movie that makes references to the Holocaust and blah blah blah? And I just wasn't mentally prepared to sit down and watch it. And like I said, a problem that I have with this whole past year in movies is all of these movies are downers and depressing and dark and cynical. And I'm like, enough. I can't take it anymore. Give me something light and fun.
This was a
and
heavy
epic.
year.
Yeah.
From Emilia Perez to even the Brutalist. It
Yeah.
talks, where my man Kai had to escape from.
Yeah. And so it's nothing against these movies. It's I myself, I can't do it. I'm tired of the heaviness.
A heavy drama year that focused on a lot of chemistry. You talk about Culkin and Eisenberg. You talk about Honora. You talk about the Brutalist.
Yep.
A lot of very, and I think that's where this year it kind of leaned.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you're looking at the stock market, it was tech stocks were big, and then they hit the little rut. Next year, it could be a bunch of adventure movies. Who knows? Maybe 2025
We'll see,
this year.
Yeah. But I actually, and this sounds silly, I actually had to sit down and watch Paddington 2 to like cleanse my palate and go, I'm in a happy place again. I'm tired of the darkness. I'm tired of the
I'm
cynicism.
telling you one thing. Xiaomi is going to do it again. At next year's biopic, I'm calling it Ray Charles. Oh, no, he already did that. Sorry. Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong. There
That's
we
the
go.
other one. He's going to go for that one.
I see. Sky's blue.
Maybe James Brown.
Yeah, either one. It's like Xiaomi's like, I'm getting this role. I'm like, ugh.
No, unfortunately, if there's an Asian role out there, that either goes to Tom Cruise or what's his name, Matt Damon.
Matt
They
Damon.
they take the Asian roles away from the Asians.
And so did Emma Stone with that one movie.
Oh, right, she got
Yeah.
some flack for that. Yeah,
No, it's what did you think of Robert Downey? Sometimes when they had previous winners get up there and or they had actors come up from like in best costume. I like that they had everybody come there, John Lithgow and Bowen Yang, and they came up there and there was a little bit of humor.
yeah.
That seems to be like a trend that's happening now in the last few years where they bring
The previous year's.
or they
winner.
bring people in from either from the previous years or they're actually in that project. Like John
Right.
Lithgow was in Conclave,
Okay.
so they brought all the actors who
Yeah.
were dressed up in there.
But wasn't Bowen Yang the only one who actually wore
Yeah,
wardrobe from the movie? I thought that was a pretty funny joke. That was well done.
yeah. That's the with the comedy they got to time it.
Yeah.
Tommy's all about timing right there, and some of these guys don't attend rehearsal, so like, oh, just skip the prompter, just go.
That's right. Let's jump ahead to Best Supporting Actress. Now, I never saw Amelia Perez. It's just not a movie that speaks to me. I don't have much of an interest in it. I will say this. I adore Zoe Saldana from Guardians of the Galaxy and Avatar, and the list goes
Pirates
on
of
and
the
on and
Caribbean.
on. Was she in that?
Yes,
Which
she
one?
was. That's
one
when
of
I
the
first-
later ones, wasn't it?
No,
Or-
it was
the
in the
first
first
one?
one. She was in the first one when she
Wow, I
she
gotta
slapped Jack
Oh,
Sparrow.
that's right.
He's like,
she
you
was
didn't
a
have to- now-
spurned lover, right?
That I deserved.
Yeah.
Because he stole my ship.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I did too.
So I adore her, and even though I hadn't seen the movie, she had an emotional speech, and she's so talented, and she's kind of the flavor of the year, sort of a thing.
Did the
and she's in
mommy
so
thing
many
feel
movies.
genuine?
The what?
Hi, mommy. She started screaming "mommy" out there. I thought, oh, are we having a moment? Is this? Oh, do we have to cut the commercial?
I didn't have a problem with it, but
I don't know, it felt kind of weird.
so I thought it was deserving. Again, I don't know about the performance in the film, but I thought her body of work is at a point where she deserves recognition. So I was really happy for her. What are you guys' thoughts on Best Supporting Actress? Any other names jump out at you?
I don't. This isn't a spoiler, but Felicity Jones. She's not even in the first half of
The
the
Brutalist?
Brutalist.
Yeah, that was. You talk about
Interesting.
maximizing your screen time.
Yeah, she only shows up after the intermission, but she was great. She was great.
But that was like my man Sterling K. Brown in American Fiction. He's in there for like 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
But his scenes are amazing, and he earned an Oscar nom for it.
Here's a trivia question. I don't know if this still stands, but who won an Academy Award for in the least amount of screen time? Do you know who had the least amount of screen time and won an Oscar for it? Can
No.
you come up with the name?
What decade?
90s.
No, I have no idea.
Yeah, I have.
If it still stands,
Male or female?
she's female.
Okay.
So best supporting actress.
Sally Fields for
No,
Forrest Gump.
It's not the lady from Titanic.
no, she was nominated, but she didn't win. If it still stands today, and I may have to look this up, it was Dame Judi Dench in Shakespeare in Love. For portraying the Queen at the time. I think it was Queen Victoria, maybe, who had something like 10 minutes of screen time.
Oh my
if
God!
that.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
I'm trying. I was racking my brain. When was she in the? Oh, there. Yeah.
So, Andrew, you have your phone out. You might have
Yeah.
to validate that, but
Oh my God.
I remember that was a big deal that she won an Oscar for about 10 minutes of screen time. So,
Yes, that was the year. That was the frustrating Oscars year when Shakespeare in Love.
Shakespeare in Love
won
beat Saving Private Ryan.
And I was like, "What is happening?"
Yeah.
I was not happy that year.
And a complete unknown, Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. Excellent.
Yeah, I've heard good.
She is excellent and so hot.
Yeah.
She was also in Top Gun Maverick. Yeah,
Yes.
you guys have saw that.
Yes.
Seen that, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to go into all the categories. One thing that did kind of jump out at me as being interesting, and I don't know if this has ever happened before during the Oscars, but the movie Flow, which won Best Animated Feature, was also nominated for Best Foreign or International Film. And I don't know if that's ever happened before. I don't know if international film was, well, I think Life is Beautiful was nominated as foreign film and Best Picture. They gave him Roberto Benigni the Best Foreign Film Oscar, and then the Best Picture went to somebody else. So I guess those have been nominated in multiple categories before, but it was interesting that the animated film did that. All right, so Dame Judi Dench won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her role as Queen Elizabeth, although her screen time is only 5 minutes, 52 seconds, and 4 scenes. Now, as of today, it's the second shortest performance to win an Oscar behind Beatrice Straight of Network, which came out in 1976, who had screen time of 5:02. So,
Wow.
5 minutes of
A
screen
YouTube
time.
clip, a 5-minute YouTube clip, got you an Oscar nomination. Basically, could you imagine that?
That's amazing.
Was it so? Was there nobody else that? I mean, who were the other people in the category? Could you imagine being so pissed?
Losing. But come on, it's Dame Judi Dench. She
was in there for 5 minutes.
Now, speaking of Network, I watched that for the first time within the last year or so, and I'm looking for this actress in Network. Like, where the hell is she? And she played the role of like the beleaguered wife of the main character in Network. And yeah, she only had very little screen time. She was pretty powerful, but to win an Oscar for 5 minutes of screen time, that's mind-boggling.
You're going to have some actors be like, I actually wrestled an alligator. They didn't even give me a nomination.
I put on 100 pounds.
I gave myself 6 different forms of diabetes.
Now, I'm saving this category for last because this is going to allow us to segue into our main topic today. Best Director went to Sean Baker of Anora, beating out Brady Corbett of The Brutalist, James Mangold for A Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard for Amelia Perez, and Coralie Fairgate for The Substance. And so that was his third award of the night, and then he won Best Picture at the end of the night. So Anora came away with 4 Oscars that basically were credited to Sean Baker. So having gone up there 3 times, he pulled a speech out of his pocket, and he was prepared to devote the time that he was given for his Best Director Oscar. And I have it here, and I'm going to play it for you now.
So we're all here tonight and watching this broadcast because we love movies. Where did we fall in love with the movies? At the movie theater. Watching a film in the theater with an audience is an experience. We can laugh together, cry together, scream and fright together, perhaps sit in devastated silence together. And in a time in which the world can feel very divided, This is more important than ever. It's a communal experience you simply don't get at home. And right now, the theater-going experience is under threat. Movie theaters, especially independently owned theaters, are struggling, and it's up to us to support them. During the pandemic, we lost nearly 1,000 screens in the US, and we continue to lose them regularly. If we don't reverse this trend, we'll be losing a vital part of our culture. This is my battle cry. Filmmakers, keep making films for the big screen. I know I will. Distributors, please focus first and foremost on the theatrical releases of your films. Neon did that for me, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Parents, introduce your children to feature films in movie theaters, and you'll be molding the next generation of movie lovers and filmmakers. And for all of us, when we can, please watch movies in the theater, and let's keep the great tradition of the movie-going experience alive and well. And one last thing, my mother introduced me to cinema at 5 years old. Today is also her birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you. Thank you for everything. And this is for you.
So that might have been my favorite moment from the Oscars, because I am passionate about movies and passionate about seeing movies in the theater. And I lament the fact that since 2020, when everyone was encouraged to stay home and not congregate in groups, that the theater going experience almost vanished from the landscape, and that broke my heart. I couldn't wait to get back in to the theater to watch a movie. And if I remember correctly, I think the first movie I saw in the theater post-COVID was one of the Fast and Furious movies, whichever one came out in 2020 or 2021. And I might have been one of 5 people in the theater, if that. I might have been the only one in the theater. But it was so refreshing. Like, I was so happy to have a bucket of popcorn and a Coke and sitting there watching a movie on the big screen again. And I didn't think it was going to take as long as it has for that to get normalized again. We're still not there. I've seen, movies opening weekend in an auditorium that has 5 people in it. And I'm like, what is going on here? We're still not back there. And like Sean said, 1,000 screens have shuttered. We know a few around here. The Maple has closed, which showed a lot of independent films. The Main Art in Royal Oak has been demolished. A lot of these theaters didn't survive the post-COVID period, and we still haven't fully recovered from it. Since COVID, I've probably seen 10 movies on the big screen, maybe.
The fact that you know the number is alarming.
Yeah. Now, before COVID, I would see, on average, 20, 22 movies a year at the theater. To think I haven't even hit that number in the 5 years since COVID, and we are coming up on the 5th anniversary of that. Yeah. It's shocking to me that we haven't fully recovered to going to see movies in theaters when it's one of my great joys in life. And so what I wanted to spend kind of our remaining time here talking about are those memories of going to a theater and seeing a movie in a packed theater with friends and family and strangers and cheering, or having your popcorn launch into the air because of a jarring, scary moment or something like that. Now, one thing I do have in common with Sean's speech there is he talked about his mom introducing him to films at 5. My earliest memory of seeing a theatrical release wasn't necessarily in a theater. It was at a drive-in, and this really dates me now. But I'm lumping the drive-in into this as well. Imagine being 5 years old, getting to the drive-in, lay a blanket on the top of the car, and given a Coke and popcorn, and laying on the car watching a movie. And that movie was, for me, The Godfather. 5-year-old kid watching The Godfather at a drive-in. And the thing that is ingrained in my brain is the horse's head scene. Imagine being 5 years old, being horrified by
Yeah, that might do it, Joe, because like a stop sign, ratings are just suggestions.
They are. And, you know, if you can't get a babysitter, you go to the drive-in, hope the kids fall asleep. But my parents wanted to see these movies, and so they weren't going to get a babysitter. Another movie I have very early memory of seeing was Diamonds Are Forever, a James Bond flick. So think about that. One of the first movies I have memories of seeing was a James Bond movie. That's why I'm so passionate about James Bond. And so before I go into
Is
my
that the one with Bambi and
list-
Thumper?
I think it is where they fight in a
Yeah.
pool or something. And
You were how old?
what's that?
How old were you?
About 5 or 6
about
when
right.
diamonds are. Yeah. So that shaped my attitude toward women as well.
The pieces to your puzzle are becoming so clear to me as over our time.
I spent my life looking for Jill St. John in a skimpy bikini, and she doesn't exist in the real world. But before I list, all of my movie experiences, I wanted to talk to you guys about your earliest memories of seeing a movie in a theater with a crowd. Nick, what comes to mind when you go into that Wayback Machine? What comes to mind?
See, I don't have a lot of memories pre-10 because I did 4 years. I was born here. I had 4 years here. Then I moved to India. I spent 7 years there. I didn't really see a lot of movies in the theater over there. Came back here. So the first one I do remember seeing, but didn't really have a lot of fun, was like Batman Returns.
Interesting.
Yeah, because that was 92, and so I was like, it's okay. But that's one of my first ones. My favorite, and the one that'll be like one of those core memories that you have in Inside Out that they'll never change. It'll shape who you are. Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and we've talked about that on this
Yeah.
podcast before. That anyone, I mean, I was a little older when I saw Jurassic Park. I could imagine a young person in the theater watching Jurassic Park. What an awe-inspiring feeling, memory, experience that must have been to see these dinosaurs brought back to life on a movie screen.
My mom and dad took me. I remember we were sitting at the perfect position. It was like just a couple of rows back from the middle.
Center, I like to call it.
Yeah, because we got there early. I had to get in the middle seat. I wanted to see my mom and dad next to me.
Yeah.
So I got to see enough of the people in front of me and to the side. I could hear people behind me. When the Brachiosaurus shows up, the audible gasp.
Yeah.
Like you could feel it. Everyone's like, oh my, and you heard the murmurs from the adults, and anyone that was not an adult was, that intake. You could, an audible gasp, and I was like, oh my God. And then some kids would scream with excitement. So that, for me, that'll always stay there. And I imagine, I told you when George and you, Joe, were talking, maybe that was your Star Wars moment. When
Yeah.
the Star Destroyer goes over, and you was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's interesting. Andrew, you sent a message earlier today saying that, hey, you could watch the unspecialized editions of Star Wars. What was the platform that just showing it? I forgot what you said.
You know
it
where
was.
Han shoots first?
Yeah. And so when you sent that, I was like, well, I have that on DVD, like some movie snob. But that's my preferred version because that's what I saw in the theater. It did not say Episode 1. It was called Star Wars. And I'm going to call it Star Wars. I'm going to call it Star Wars. That will always be Star Wars.
I
to
didn't
me.
know that version was on DVD.
Yeah. Yeah, all three of the original trilogy you can find on DVD in its theatrical release.
All right, so the streamer, it's just called Cinema Box.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
It's
Okay.
free, but of course there's commercials.
Sure.
Yeah. So your Jurassic Park
Me-
moment
yeah.
was my Star Wars moment. And not only do I remember seeing Star Wars in the theater, but I'm going to back up a little bit. I remember loading up the families in a station wagon. My mom didn't drive, so we went with another family. And I remember my mom saying, we're going to go see your stupid Star Wars movie. And I was like, ah! We loaded up the station wagon. I have a vivid memory of seeing, it was Beacon East Theater over in East Point there. Big giant marquee, but the only title that was on that marquee was Star Wars in little black letters, which means it was probably playing on multiple screens. So imagine pulling into that parking lot, seeing Star Wars on the big white marquee as you drive in Beacon East, and going in and sitting next to my brother and my sister going, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. I gave just so excited. And watching Star Wars in the theater as a 10-year-old was one of the most memorable movie theater experiences of my life.
For Jurassic Park, I remember because there was that. It used to be called Showcase Auburn Hills.
Yeah.
I went to see
on Updike.
Yeah, saw it with my folks. My buddy was coming in later, so he came to a later show. I got it there. I said, "What are you seeing? Jurassic Park?" Yeah, Mom, can I go with him? He's like, "You get?" So I get right back with his parents. I went right back to go see him. Like, you got to see this.
That's like going to an amusement park, riding the new roller coaster,
Yep.
getting off and getting right back in line. That's the experience that these movies provided. It was just 90 minutes or whatever of just adrenaline and excitement. And when you got off that ride, you got back in line and you wanted to see it again.
That was like a week of Jurassic, because then my buddy and I got out. We went to school the next day. We were like, "You guys got to see this." And so a bunch of my friends all would just get dropped off theater because you want to see with your adults. If you see with just a bunch of kids, it's a different vibe, different energy.
Yeah.
I miss those.
Yeah.
I saw Jurassic Park: The Lost World at that theater with my buddy Grant.
Nice.
97, I think. That came
Yep,
out.
97.
Yeah.
I used to go to Showcase Sterling Heights, which was on Van Dyke. Andrew, what's one of your, or if the earliest memory you have of seeing a movie in a theater?
I know I talked about this before, but Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I begged my mom to take me, and then there was probably like 12 of us that went. I don't think my little sister went. I think she would have been too young, but like my grandma went, my friend, and this was only a couple years after Robert had moved off the street that we lived on. But my other friend, he went with us. A couple other people went with us. That's not my earliest memory. I think I was 9. Yeah, I would have been 9. But it was the one that had the biggest impact at that young of an age.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what I'd seen before that, and Neverending Story 2, which
Yeah.
scared the crap out of me. Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yeah.
My aunt took me to see that. Right now, where Motor City Guitar is in Waterford, that used to be a 50-cent theater. Where they would show movies that had been out for a while.
Yeah, we would go to the Dollar Show and see movies that have been out for 6 months.
AMC Hampton over in Rochester used to be the one that had $1.
On Rochester Road?
Yeah.
That's where I saw Jurassic Park. I couldn't
nice.
remember the name of it, but yeah.
That's
South
awesome.
of Hamlin on Rochester.
Yeah.
That's where I saw
that.
Jurassic
And
Park.
Cinemark Warren used to be the $1.50 theaters.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big part of youth. I don't think those exist anymore, do
No.
they? There's no
No.
such thing as a
No.
dollar theater anymore. But that was big for a family on a budget. And, at this point, my dad had left. It was just my mom. She had 4 kids. You couldn't pay $4 or $5 a ticket. So we'd go to the Dollar Show. And this is another, and I may have mentioned this on the podcast before, but this is another movie theater going experience that I had. I remember going to the Dollar Show, and a little movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark had come out, and I so desperately wanted to see it. And, Han Solo is a different character we've never seen before. And we walk into the theater, and it's halfway through Raiders of the Lost Ark. So imagine people are trying to watch the movie. The mom walks in with her 4 kids. We find a seat. We sit down. We watch the second half of Raiders, stayed through a second movie, whatever that was. I don't even remember what the second movie was. It might have been, I don't know, Animal House or something. And then we stayed and watched the first half of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so my memory as a kid wasn't that the movie kicked off with the boulder scene. In my memory, that was halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
And then, like, watching it on cable later, I'm like, oh, this is the beginning of the movie? What? So, yeah, going to the Dollar Show, they would just show one movie and then another movie and then start the next movie. And you could pop in at any point in any of those movies and sit there and watch them. And sometimes it might be 3 movies playing back to back to back. So that's my memory of seeing Raiders of the Lost Ark, was seeing the second half first and the first half second. So
I never get tired of hearing that story because it just never makes sense to me. So I'm sitting there going, so the boulder is like the end of the second act for Joe.
Yeah.
It's the opening for the rest of us. Oh, okay.
Now, movie theater memory that I have that predates Star Wars, because Star Wars came out in 1977, was a little movie that came out in 1975, I believe. In Hamtramck, Michigan, where I grew up, we had one of those single-screen old-fashioned movie theaters that might have been built in the 20s.
Probably the 20s, yeah.
And it was called the Martha Washington Theater, ornate facade, ticket booth in the front of the building. You buy your ticket and then enter the door. And we went to go see a little movie called Jaws. And so in 1975, knowing that Jaws, I think, came out in July, we probably saw it maybe a few months later because movies were like in the theater for a year back then.
Yeah.
But I remember going to that little one-screen movie theater to see Jaws. The auditorium was massive, and it was level. It wasn't stadium seating like we enjoy today. It was level. And seeing Jaws in the movie theater with a popcorn on my lap and getting the crap scared out of me and seeing popcorn fly into the air, people screaming and reacting to the film is one of my favorite movie theater experiences I ever had, was seeing Jaws for the first time in a movie theater with a crowd. I feel sorry for people who didn't have that opportunity to see a movie like that, a classic, an epic, on the movie screen where it deserves to be seen.
Joe, forgive me. Remind me, how old were you again?
I was about 9 when I saw
that's what I kind of figured. Yeah.
Jaws.
So, childhood trauma aside, yes, that would be an excellent movie experience to go see Jaws. That would be one of those. I wish I could go back. If I had like the DeLorean, I'd go back and do Star Wars, Jaws. There are a handful of movies I would want to see in theater when they came out.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys didn't see Jaws on the big screen. You saw it on video or
I've
TV.
never had. I mean, if it ever comes out, maybe like a special release, maybe, but no.
Yeah.
I've only seen it once on a TV
Wow.
screen 20 years ago, so I need to watch it again.
That's a movie I've
What I
lost
love about
count.
Andrew is that everything about him is just it's like this never. It's a never changing.
Well, I'm just glad
mystery.
he's seen it.
He'll see.
Just accept that
He's
win.
seen 6 out of the 10 Oscar nominations, putting both you and I to shame,
Yeah.
combined. Jaws on AFI's top 100 list, seen it once.
I'm just happy he saw it.
In, like, the Clinton era.
If I sat here and spilled my guts out about seeing Jaws on the big screen and then turned to Andrew and he's like, I got nothing, I'd be like, get out of here. Get the hell out of here, Andrew.
I love
So I'm just
Jawbreakers.
glad he's
That's what I'm talking
The
Wasn't he a Bond villain?
Which Jaws? 2 or 3? Because if you ask me, Jaws the Revenge.
Jaws 17.
Michael Caine can do no wrong.
It's the best Jaws movie of the year. So that was a great memory, seeing a movie in an old-timey theater like that doesn't exist anymore. The closest experience you could have today along those lines is going to the Redford, right off of Telegraph and Grand River, where you can see classics on a single screen movie theater for the first time.
It's time I shared a little deranged aspect of myself, more so than normal. It's vile, but I miss the stickiness of the floor.
Oh, yeah.
That little you feel it because you know, like, oh, this floor has seen action tonight.
It would almost pull your shoe off.
Well, that's crossing the
Like,
line.
it's like walking away and going, "Where's my shoe?" And then you pull it off the floor. That's how sticky those floors were back then.
Back in the day, and
Can we
the
talk-
seats would just reek of popcorn. You can't get the stench out.
Oh,
I was gonna say,
man.
can we talk about more recent
Yeah.
That's why
great
we're
experiences?
here. Yeah.
I didn't know if we were. So, 2015, opening day of The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
So I saw that at the MJR Troy, which is right next door now where I work, at Livernois and Maple.
Do you clap?
I don't clap.
I do.
No. Okay.
Some people get mad.
If I can find the rhythm, I get. I don't go to MJR often, so I'm thrown off. Like, I'll be chatting with someone, and then I hear clapping, and I'm like, "Damn it! I
Yeah.
missed it."
So I saw it with 2 of my friends from high school, and then a couple, like 2 of their work buddies. So there was a group of like 5 of us. And as soon as that opening crawl started, I'm like, oh man, this is good. And I love The Force Awakens. I thought it hit every note. It was, of course, almost a beat for beat remake of
Star
the
Wars,
original,
yeah.
but I loved it, and it was fun, and it was very exciting.
It was.
And and what happens to Han Solo, and the whole packed out theater was just like,
Yeah, Harrison finally got his wish. Was begging for it
Yeah.
since Return of the
I'll
Jedi.
come back
No,
if you kill me off.
in
That's-
Empire Strikes Back, he wanted to be dead in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
carbonite.
He's been,
yeah, and
he's
they
been
left
begging
it
for
in
it.
the air. Yeah.
And then 2017, I know, Joe, you recently watched this movie and didn't care as much for it, but when I saw Blade Runner 2049 in the theater,
Yeah.
it blew me away.
Yeah.
The cinematography, the sound, the CGI, which does not look like CGI, it is so well done. Ana de Armas as a 3D girlfriend.
That whole sequence was amazing. That was award winning. I think
Yes,
that
that-
sequence won the Oscar for that film. Yeah.
That-
Amazing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I loved Blade Runner 2049. I was so scared that it wouldn't live up to, because it had Blade Runner. And Andrew mentioned The Force Awakens. For me, I saw Episode 1 of Phantom Menace, 1999, over at Star
Great Lakes.
Great Lakes.
I did too.
Now, I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to segue to that since you brought up The Force Awakens. Did you or did you not attend the midnight screenings?
I always did.
Andrew's
I-
shaking his head no.
I was 14 when that came out.
Oh, okay.
So that would have been a school night.
I got to tell you, as we're talking about our favorite movie theater moments, getting 20 people together, someone would always take charge of getting the tickets, and then we would reimburse them. We all went to, I think, the Palladium over in Birmingham or something like that. They would have not only a midnight screening, but they would have a buffet, like a meal.
Whoa, no, didn't.
And so we would get there before showtime, have a nice meal, including the price of the ticket, which was like $30.
Wow.
And we would all sit there and have a nice meal. All you can eat popcorn. You could take your bucket and dip it in the popcorn halfway through the movie. So after eating the meal, we'd all go in, we'd sit in the theater and watch the midnight screening of The Phantom Menace for the Return of the Revenge of the Sith and
That's
the
how
Clone Wars.
That's how it should be with opening night or before opening night. Go out, have a meal with the people you're with.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
I saw it the first night I could. It was probably that Friday night.
Yeah.
My parents would have had to drop me off. Honestly, I don't remember who I saw it with. I don't think I saw it alone. I was only 14. And I remember being so excited for it because when I was 6, I first got introduced to Empire Strikes Back. And then I got all the toys when they, everything. So I loved it. But even seeing it at that young of an age, The Phantom Menace, I walked out disappointed.
Yeah, no, that was the excitement when you saw the crawl come up. It was
Yeah.
people are pumped. Like, do you think this movie will suck? Nah, it'll be fine.
Even then, at 14, I was like, this doesn't look good. Like the CGI was not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the anticipation and the first release of the trailer and the excitement, like the lead story on the news, like, oh, the trailer just dropped for the new Star Wars movie, and there was all this anticipation.
And the trailers were good.
excitement.
The second one gave away too when you saw Darth Maul put his double light. I'm like, you could have saved that for the movie,
Right. Yeah, exactly. That was kind
And
of
then
a
don't
spoiler.
release the soundtrack ahead because I remember this one guy in the line was like, "It's a shame Qui-Gon dies." I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
Dude.
They in the
Yeah,
title
wasn't
of the
name
song
the
they
track.
put.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's Qui-Gon's funeral on the back of the thing. He's like, "Do you think it's shame Qui-Gon?" I'm like, "Dude," he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Dude, I know all the Jedi die, but dang it, man."
Yeah,
I went
yeah.
like, it's 2 hours before screen time.
Yeah. I can't believe Darth Vader is Luke's dad. Shut up.
Now the movies did get better. Attack of the Clones was a little bit better,
Oh, wow. I'm glad we disagree on certain things.
but Revenge of the Sith I thought was quite a bit better. And that
It
was
the
the one
best of the 3.
Oh yeah, by far.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I remember walking out of that and I'm like, okay, they put a good cap on this trilogy, and I was satisfied at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of midnight screenings, I just looked something up here on my phone. So Jurassic Park was released on June 11th, 1993, which was a Friday, I believe. My ticket stub, which I still have, says June 10th on it. which means I saw it the late show the night before it officially opened to the public. So imagine being among the first to watch Jurassic Park for the first time.
Yeah, that I
That's
didn't get
exciting.
to do. I wish I could have because I didn't have my driver's. The moment I got my driver's license or permit, I could start doing the midnight screening stuff.
Yeah.
So I had to wait till 95, 96.
Yeah.
Independence Day saw that midnight screening.
Now it was another great movie to see with the crowd.
Yeah.
Cheers. I mean, when Randy Quaid is like, "Hello, boys, I'm back." That got an ovation. That
The
got a
president's
cheer.
speech.
That speech, one of the all-time greatest monologues in movie history for a sci-fi epic. It's a great speech. That was a great movie to see with a live crowd.
That came out in 96.
96.
Yeah. I bet my dad took me to see that. And I think it was at that same theater on Updike. And I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. And my parents are so nerdy and everything. They don't swear at all. But when Will Smith said, "You did not shoot that green shit at me," I remember looking over at my dad is cracking up. But
Yeah.
that was a good experience. Independence Day.
Yeah. Now, talking to my coworker Tessa, who shares office space with me, she's like, "What's the topic this week on the podcast?" I said, "Oh, we're talking our favorite movie theater moments." I said, "What comes to mind?" And she did not even hesitate. She didn't even think about it. She goes, she says, the Endgame, Avengers Endgame, where you see the hammer on the ground, a hand reaches down to pick it up. You see Thor go, "I knew it!" And there's Captain America with the hammer in his hand.
Well, it floats up to him, right? It
Did it come up to his
yeah, it
hand, or
floats up
did
and
he
then it
pick
flies
it
into
up?
his hand. Kind
Okay.
Of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. I saw that in the theater with a large group of friends, and the cheer, the roar that came from that packed house was unforgettable, where people lost their friggin' mind. Now, I think Infinity War is a better movie than Endgame, but as far as movie moments go, that's hard to top. That's top 10 for me personally. Cap wielding Thor's hammer. That was such a great movie moment.
Yeah, I agree. I saw it with my sister and brother-in-law when it came out, and yeah, I felt the same way. It was, but that's the thing, that movie. It's like, okay, this is the biggest and best that Marvel has done so far.
Yeah.
Where do they go from here?
Unfortunately, it was the end of an era.
That's
in
what
hindsight,
that's what I'm saying.
at the time you don't realize it, but now looking back, it was the end of an
But
era.
they had it right there, and they fumbled it away. They had everything. You had the ultimate mulligan. You could, when you snap your finger, you can reset everything.
Yeah,
It's like what's his face, J.J. Abrams with Star Trek.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's new Spock.
Yeah, they
Anything
created
goes.
that wormhole. They
Yeah.
had new horizons,
And
new
then they-
outcomes.
And as much as I enjoy the Loki series, they're like, yeah, it's a paperweight now. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
so those things are you just collect them in a drawer now.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you get them out of a vending machine. Here's another great movie moment. I just happen to have it on my little playback machine here. So, imagine, was it 78? The movie Alien comes out, and that movie alone had a lot of great moments in it. Seeing that in the theater was amazing. But imagine waiting a number of years for the sequel. The sequel comes out, it's James Cameron, and it was a completely different movie where Alien was a horror movie, Aliens was kind of a war picture, an action flick. And I will never, ever forget the audience reaction to this.
Get away from her, you bitch!
When Ripley, who has now kind of adorned this motherly persona, trying to protect Newt, they did the little MacGuffin at the beginning where they saw her working that exoskeleton suit.
The dock loader, yeah.
Yeah, and when the way it unfolds, the doors open, she's backlit with some spotlight, and she steps out in that suit, says that line, and then goes toe to toe, slinging haymakers back and forth. again, I got goosebumps thinking about it. That was one of the all-time great movie moments, and I remember the audience reacting to it. My God, that was incredible.
You just triggered a memory for me, and because they showed Raiders in the theater at one point as one of those nostalgia things. I always remember. I wish I could have, and I finally got to do it when Indy discovers where the Ark is, and they're on top of that platform. They're digging, and the sun's right behind him.
Wasn't
he
that
takes
beautifully composed shot?
And he puts on the hat. That silhouette. I was like, that's a silhouette you can identify anywhere. And he turns his head at the last second, and he's framed against the sun. And I finally got to see it in theater because they were having a special screening. I think in Birmingham. I think.
Yeah, that was that's Spielberg at his best, just creating cinema and yeah, the silhouette, or even earlier in the movie when Marion's in her bar and she's closing up for the night, and that shadow comes up on the wall with the fedora. It's so beautifully composed, and Spielberg is a master, and he's just will always be my all-time favorite director. And even when he wasn't directing a film, he had his hand in so many great films. He would, if he supported something, he would get an executive producer credit to make sure that movie happened. But you're right. I mean, the boulder scene, what an amazing scene from Raiders, and the truck scene where he gets thrown off the front of the truck, and then paying homage to Stagecoach and early Westerns. Indy, goes under the truck, comes up over the back, and those are such great movie moments to experience with.
And though I didn't experience it in 1980, I got to experience it in the 90s.
Yeah,
and it was fantastic. So I got to see that, and I was like, okay, chalk that off my bucket list.
Yeah. Now, this may shock people, but a movie I have not yet seen on the big screen, and I keep hoping that it's going to get some sort of a re-release soon, is The Last Crusade. Ooh. I only saw The Last Crusade on video, on VHS.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I've since watched it on DVD, but I have not. The first time I watched it was on VHS, and I've not seen it in a theater since. And I really want to experience The Last Crusade on the big screen, because I think it's one of the best movies of the entire franchise, and it's on my 100 greatest movie list.
No, you mentioned Spielberg's Jurassic Park, and like I said, that's one of the movies that got me interested in the behind-the-scenes stuff. Now I would always get a DVD where I'd say what the making of.
Yeah.
That's what got I love that stuff. I can't get enough of that.
Yeah. Now another movie again that just brings a vivid memory of seeing it in the theater was the movie was coming out, and my sisters kind of pushed me into seeing it because they both had a little crush on Tiger Beat magazine's Michael J. Fox. And there was a theater in Madison Heights called the Abbey. And there's a Micro Center there now.
Yep.
And it was Abbey Theater. Yeah. And early multiplex. And they dragged me, I think, because I had the car. They're like, take us to go see Back to the Future. And I was like, all right. Holy crap. Watching that movie unfold and going, what is happening now? I have a little soundbite here. I'm not even sure what this is. Let me play it.
Lorraine, what are you doing?
I swiped it from the old lady's liquor cabinet.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't drink.
Don't be such a square. Everybody who's anybody drinks.
Geez, you smoke too?
Marty, you're beginning to sound just like my mother.
That movie was so batshit crazy seeing it for the first time, going, his mother has the hots for him. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen in a movie theater before. And I walked out of that theater like that was one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. And that ranks up there as among the most repeated viewings. When you factor Star Wars and Jaws, Back to the Future, I've seen literally dozens of times.
Sylvester's soundtrack, one of the most favorite moments of that movie was when he's hugging Doc, 1955 Doc, and they're playing the music.
Uh-huh.
He's like, thank you. And he's like, I'll see you in about 30 years. And he's like, I hope so. And you felt that. I felt this guy's like hugging his friend. He's like, I hope.
Yeah, it had some weight to it, you
Yeah.
know? And that's the best movies have sort of a mix of drama and comedy and emotion and, you know, and this.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think with fly, think.
So again, vivid memory of seeing that in the theater. It you know, I wanted to say this. I was thinking how to craft this, but every movie that I've seen, whether it be in the theater, drive-in, or watching it on television, is like adding an ingredient to a pot of stew for me. Every movie I see shapes me in some way, transforms me. Some movies I come out of the theater and I look at the world in a different way. Perfect example of that is The Matrix. I am not the same person I was before I saw The Matrix. I came out of that movie a changed man. Can you guys think of movies that you've seen that altered your DNA? Nick?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mentioned Jurassic Park. Matrix definitely is one of them. The other one that I enjoyed the hell out of it, even though it was a comedy, it was Men in Black.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed Men in Black so
That's
much.
an underrated trilogy. I liked all 3 installments of Men in Black.
I just wish they didn't take a decade between each one, as you know, Tommy Lee Jones just aged horribly between. It's like a melting lava lamp. But the other movie, in this, when I first heard about it and I saw the first teaser trailer, The Fellowship of the Ring, I
sure.
took my friends, a bunch of Indians, and they were surrounded by people dressed as elves, dwarves, and they're looking at me like, Nick, what is happening? Like, trust me, guys, trust me. I think only one of my other friends had actually read it. And so, yeah, we went there and I went to the midnight screening. I actually got a bunch of them to go there. And no, that's another one.
And you brought up a memory of a movie moment. Now, I saw Fellowship of the Rings. I enjoyed it, but it felt incomplete because we were just getting started. So then the next part 2 comes out. What's the middle one?
Two Towers.
2 Towers. And there's a lot of action in that. You know, it's mostly action. Then the third one comes out. And of the 3, in my opinion, it's the most complete movie. And I just remember what an experience it was seeing that in the theater. But when you talk about movie moments, the one that comes to mind, and again, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, is when the king now is addressing the hobbits and says, "You bow to no one."
Oh, yeah.
You guys getting goosebumps? You getting
Yeah.
goosebumps? That is a great movie moment where if I was to cut together, let's say, a 10-minute video of just lines and moments and I'll be back and, do you feel lucky, punk? You got to put that moment in there. I think that's one of the all-time great movie moments, that you bow to no one.
In that same movie, the other one was The Ride of the Rohirrim, when the horses come running over. Because when you see it in that Dolby surround sound, they actually play. The theater was rumbling, and I was like, "Wow, this is," and it's fantastic. And with the score that they're playing, it was great. Now those are moments I enjoy, and it obligated my friends to come with me because they were like, "We have to go see the other 2." I'm like, "Yeah, you do."
Yeah. So I mean, when you talk about all-time great trilogies, boy, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is right there at the top. Andrew, can you think of any movies that altered your DNA, that like changed you as a person?
Or as science folks say, Denna.
Then, I know I've mentioned this movie a million times, and I only saw it in the theater for the first time a couple of years ago. But of course, I'd seen it on VHS as Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh yeah.
That I know that's
Nice.
I know you guys said that you really like it too.
Oh yeah.
That and a lot of other Charlie and the Chocolate Factory Tim Burton movies, big time. Batman.
Okay. Yeah. He had such a unique style.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas, big time. I watched the shit out of it.
Edward Scissorhands.
Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
Sleepy Hollow, I love.
I love Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy
too.
Hollow
That's
is so cool.
If we ever do a podcast dedicated to underrated movies, I think Sleepy Hollow's up there. I really,
What a
really
cast!
enjoy that film.
When you think
Yeah.
when you look at that cast, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Yeah, and I know people sort of knock Johnny Depp for playing. He went through a phase where he played these eccentric, quirky characters. But I loved him as Ichabod Crane and really enjoyed that movie a lot.
That phase lasted 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love hearing like the story behind Pirates of the Caribbean where, when they're like action and Johnny Depp starts doing his slurred Keith Richards impersonation and people are looking at each other like, what the hell's going on here? Should we intervene? Should we say something? And they're like, no, just let him go with it.
Yeah.
And he created one of the all-time great movie characters, and he was fantastic in that movie. And so just go with his instincts. But unfortunately, I don't know if those instincts paid off in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
For me, in the Chocolate Factory movie, to me, he was channeling Michael Jackson, which I thought was sort of an odd choice.
Yeah.
In Pirates, he was channeling Keith Richards. In there, he says, I want to do Michael Jackson. Maybe you shouldn't be surrounded by yes men.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So you're saying Tim Burton kind of altered your DNA? That's awesome.
Big time.
Yeah. Now, going back to Pee-wee, it was a kind of a different experience for me because prior to the movie coming out, I think my introduction to Pee-wee was an HBO special where they had recorded his stage play with a lot of the actors and characters that would appear on the TV show later and in the movie. And so when I saw the stage play, I'm like, this is one of the most amazing things I ever saw.
Yes.
And then what came first, his TV series or Pee-wee's Big
The movie
Adventure?
came first, and then.
So then the movie segued into the TV series.
Did you ever see Big Top Pee-wee?
I did once or twice. Not the same caliber, but
Not the same caliber. And I had only seen it once, probably in 90 or 91. And I'm like, oh, this doesn't. No, it was probably a couple years after that. But I'm like, oh, this doesn't compare to Big Adventure. But then 2 years ago, I watched it again for the first time.
Yeah.
In 25 years, and I liked it a lot more. So
interesting. I may have
going
to
back and
revisit
watching
that,
it. It is a lot better than I remember.
All right, I will.
Yeah,
I will, Dottie.
There were I laughed out loud several times.
Now, speaking of laughing out loud, Andrew, you're reading my mind. It's almost like I have a script for you. We only have about 5-6 minutes left. One thing I've neglected to talk about as far as movie theater experiences is the laughter. So I want to throw out a couple of moments where I have memories of laughing so hard in the theater that I would literally be falling out of my seat. One of them was seeing Blazing Saddles in the theater and the campfire scene. When the cowboys are all eating beans around the campfire scene, and one guy lets one rip, another guy, and then it's a symphony of passing gas. And as Slim Pickens comes out of the tent, one guy says, how about some more beans, Mr. Taggart? And he goes, I'd say you boys had about enough. And he's waving the hat in front of his face. I was falling out of my seat. I remember the audience roaring with laughter. It was one of the biggest group laughs I've ever heard in my entire life. Another movie that made me laugh so hard I had tears in my eyes was in Caddyshack. And there's a lot of moments in Caddyshack, but the one that I remember the audience just roaring on and that everyone was talking about afterward was the candy bar in the pool scene. Yeah. That was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen in my life up to that point. And they play the Jaws theme, do-dum, do-dum, and Spaulding, Doogie, whatever. Spaulding, get away from it. And then Bill Murray just has the punchline where he takes a bite out of it and goes, no big deal. That was one of the funniest moments I've ever seen in the theater. And the third one that comes to mind, and this one might be a little, I don't know if it would have the same general consensus, but seeing Airplane in the theater for the first time, joke after joke, laugh after laugh after laugh. And the moment I remember laughing the hardest at was the Saturday Night Fever parody where they do a flashback scene and Robert Hayes takes his jacket off and he's got the Saturday Night Fever suit on.
He throws it.
And he's singing he throws it and comes back. And as he's doing the John Travolta dance moves, he goes into the Russian squat where he's kicking his legs out. And then someone throws him some oranges and he starts juggling oranges as he's dancing. And again, I remember having tears in my eyes, laughing so hard, falling out of my seat. So those moments are really special to me too, not just the scares and the thrills, but laughing with several hundred people out loud in a movie theater was so special to me as a kid and a teenager growing up. Can you guys throw out any moments along those lines
Yeah.
where you just saw yourself laughing hysterically in a theater? Nick?
Especially with my dad and I, Home Alone.
Oh, wow.
The
That's
first one,
cool.
1991, because I had just come back from India and we wanted to go see a comedy movie, and we saw, and we love slapstick, and so basically from the moment they show up at the kid's house and he shoots them with the BB gun in the balls, and then it just keeps going on, and my dad and I are just laughing, and we're in tears.
Yeah.
We're
Now,
laughing so-
interestingly, I didn't see Home Alone in theaters, and I was so shocked when it kept climbing up the box office all-time list. And I finally got to the point where I'm like, I got to see what this is all about. And I watched it on cable or something, a year or so later. And I found myself laughing pretty hard during that whole sequence, too. And I was like, okay, I get it. One of the more recent movies that I found myself laughing uncontrollably at was The Hangover. Joke after joke after joke, big reveal,
I was
big
gonna say
reveal.
That was,
Is that your, I stepped on your toes.
It's all right.
Go ahead. Share your memory of seeing The Hangover.
I was going to say a lot of those movies from the 2000s, Wedding Crashers, Anchorman,
old school?
Yeah.
Old
Even
School.
Talladega Nights made me laugh.
Super Bad.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who I saw Hangover with. That was 2008, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember who I saw that with. But it was one of those things where everyone's like,
Yeah.
like the gross out humor,
And
pushing the
having
envelope.
Ken Jeong popping out of the trunk naked. Like, where the hell did that come from? That's probably the moment I laughed the hardest in that film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then before that, like late 90s stupid comedies that we would sneak into,
American Pie,
American Pie,
Yeah.
Deuce Bigelow, stupid stuff.
Zoolander.
Yeah.
And we got to give props to Adam Sandler. He had some really great classic moments in film, too, as far as the laughs. Yeah.
Billy Madison,
Yeah.
Happy Gilmore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
definitely.
we have Austin Powers.
Awesome Powers.
That came out of nowhere. That was like,
Yeah.
felt like a Saturday Night Live movie that wasn't based on any Saturday Night Live skits. It was a bit that Michael Myers did with his wife, like in bed. Do I make you honey? Do I make you Randy? And that turned into a freaking movie and
A
a
franchise.
great one at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're just about out of time, and I almost feel
Don't you
sad.
dare play me off.
Stop the music. I hate to end this conversation because I'm in this warm, happy place of thinking back to going to the movies with family and friends and sitting in a theater with hundreds of people laughing and getting scared and gripping the edge of my seat. I got to throw out there real quick, Pulp Fiction was such an amazing movie theater experience where I was sore from the tension after that movie, and it was immediately thought that was one of the greatest films I'd ever seen. So props to Quentin Tarantino for manipulating your audience. We can go on and on and on, but unfortunately we're going to have to end it. But please go back to the theater, buy tickets, buy popcorn, support not only the multiplexes, but, Oxford Theater, just a couple of small screens there. Go support your local theater where the popcorn and pop is a little bit more palatable
they
than the
mentioned
big
that in the
one.
Oscars with Conan. He's like, "What's this thing called?" Oh, it's called a screen. How do we turn it on? No, don't worry about it. We'll turn it on for you.
Yeah. So please get back into the movies, into the theaters. There's a number of films coming out this year that I'm looking forward to seeing in the theater, and I hope society gets back to getting back into the movie
I would
theater.
like to get back to about 30 to 40 trips to the movie theater because it used to be 20 different movies because you
Right.
get 4 movies during the summer,
Yeah.
16 weeks in the summer, another 8 to 12 in the winter.
and then the
one or two that you-
prestige films in
Yeah.
the fall. So, yeah, let's get back to it, and hopefully we will see you in the theater. And our closing theme just cannot be more appropriate following this discussion. We'll see you.
Come to the movie. movies. Watch Charlie Chaplin and put some sunshine into your day. Forget the hard times, come to the movies and try to laugh your troubles away.